good morning. Welcome to a fabulous new week. My name is Vida Echetabu. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and we're having an interesting conversation today. I would like to appreciate everybody who has liked, subscribed, commented, and honestly, the engagements on the YouTube platform have been quite entertaining and interesting. So if you haven't commented there yet or engaged with us yet, please do so. All right, so the conversation today is going to sit around education. And when we think about education, we just think about classrooms and the like. The question now would be that which one is more important? Because for some reason, when we talk about education, we sort of split it, and somebody says education is more important than exposure, or exposure is more important than education. Newsflash, exposure is actually education. Now, what we can say is exposure is societal education and academic is formal education. Now, what again I would delve into this morning would be to, sort of throw some light on the benefits and how it impacts society. It's often said that if we want to know the progress, of a nation, look at its educational system. What is the product, the curriculum, the long-term, short-term, mid-term position of the government, with regards to the education of its youth, its children, its infants, and frankly speaking, its adults as well. So how do we discuss this? I would say that academics is very expensive and would not reach everybody. This is proven world over. There are many people who have the good intentions of getting an academic education, but they can't afford it, or they afforded it at some point and they had to drop out, or something happened. However, exposure, it will reach everybody. Everybody will get an exposure. As long as you live in a society, you will get an exposure. Academics is expensive. Exposure is priceless. Now, let's bring it back to a conversation I had with one or two friends on a platform not too long ago. And the question came about saying, would I pull my children out of school for 1 year to travel or not? I didn't even think twice about it. I knew immediately that my answer would be yes. Yes, because exposure is priceless, like I said before. I want my children to travel across different cultures. I want my children to learn languages and be more accommodating of other people's orientations and lifestyles. And that is what would make and add more value and flavor to the formal education of academics. Academic education is not going anywhere. So I believe that by the time that I have taken them across a couple of bold cultures, and when I talk about that, they are already Nigerian. I am Nigerian, so they are Nigerian. I would look at exposing them possibly to the Asian culture. I would look to exposing them to the Arabian culture, that is the Dubais, the Emirates, the Jordans, and the like. I would look to exposing them to, let's say, the Scandinavian environment. Maybe I'm not getting my geography right, but around the Greeks, around the Mediterranean, you know, that aspect. And I would possibly look at one more location. Let's see, possibly Australia. You know, why have I flung them so far? I flung them so far because I want to make sure that their minds are well expanded. When they now come back to school and conversations are holding and topics are being taught, and we're talking about politics, we're talking about development technology from different parts of the globe, it's more hands-on, more realistic, it's deeper, it's richer for them. I bring this back to my own upbringing. Yes, I had some foreign travel. Not so much, but I had some foreign travel and it gave me an advantage growing up. However, for secondary school, I schooled in Oyo. For university, I went to Akwa Ibom State. For NYSC, I went to Gombe State. And there was really no fear. Yes, barring these times where security is a concern, my parents were big on sending us outside of our comfort or biological, you know, background. I'm Igbo, you know. They wanted to make sure that we were able to learn, absorb, accommodate, you know, and it made education, it made living, it made career, it made everything more meaningful, more valuable, more accommodating, more progressive. Now, bringing it back to the conversation of education and the way forward for a nation, it is quite instructive that we do not do an either-or approach. Education, academics as the case may be in this conversation, and exposure need to feed off each other. They need to endorse each other. They need to affirm each other. Because in the long run, that is what will show up in the society. I can tell you for free that it's only a matter of time. In the long run, exposure, the culture of any society will dust, chew up and throw out the degrees and certificates of any society. One final point before I round up today. Many years ago, I was still a junior in career at the time, and I had a few young colleagues, young guys, and they made certain comments. It looked like, you know, they were kidding and they were joking, and they probably were. You know, they said, when I enter government, let me chop my own money and come out. I remember this, and this conversation happened probably between 8 to 10 years ago, but it left a bad taste in my mouth. And I said to myself, if people like me, I presumed, formerly private sector, you know, forward thinking, exposed, you know, to what society could be like, were able to ingest, make such comments, an alarm bell went off in my head. You know, it made me concerned. And now the question would be, did they make those same comments at home in the presence of their children? Because if I could remember, most likely their children would remember. Those are societal education that we are exposing our children to. So what are we pushing on our airwaves? What are we pushing in media? What are we pushing in comedy? What are we pushing in, you know, in jest, in gist, in when you are doing family time and you are gisting with your children or gisting with your spouse and your children? You think they're not listening, but they overhear conversations. What are the things that you are saying? Because guess what? You are giving them an education, albeit informal, and that education is actually even more potent than academic education. So I would like for all of us to please go back and hold an adult education for ourselves, to say, what are we watching What are we endorsing? Because we cannot tell the children, I want you to have straight A's, I want you to do this, I want you to be all that. And then we're happy to let them watch strange things on television that totally contradicts the goals. If you want to go to Aba and you have set your car to go to Zimbabwe, they're divergent. They are not in alignment. So we need to make sure that as a society, particularly and unfortunately in these times where ASU has been on strike, students, young adults, the future of the country, have been at home for over 5 months. What are we then exposing them to if academic education has failed? When I think about exposure, how strongly it impacts the development of a nation, I think of 2 major countries. It might be controversial, but they had a game plan. China and Russia. For a long time, and my knowledge or my understanding of this might be quite limited, but I will speak from what I feel, can be benefited from that context. China for a very long time had a very, very fenced in society. There was a lot of control in terms of internet. I believe there still is. The education for the children, the number of children a family was allowed to have, the type of exposure and things they saw, and things that were there was a lot of monitoring, a lot of control. And yes, it was extreme, and to some degree, we may even say prohibitive or offensive, but look at China of then and look at the China of now. You see, whether we like it or not, China is a superpower now. And it happened intentionally. They controlled not just the academic education of their population, but the exposure. They groomed, they fine-tuned, they wired their people in such a strict, regimented way because they wanted to make sure that they had a firm handle on the possible outcome. It may not hit 100% because human beings are human beings, but look at China. I remember many, many years ago growing up, when you see made in China, everybody knows it's not going to last. But look at now, everything, literally everything is produced in China, from the highest quality to the lowest quality. They have their hand literally in every pot. They controlled their education, academic and social. The next superpower I would like for us to discuss would also be Russia. Russia was also strongly controlled, strongly monitored, and I believe till this day it is. Whether we like them affectionately or not, they have carved a place of power and strength and influence in the world. Nobody messes with the KGB. I don't want to even mess with them. I'm even afraid mentioning KGB in this video. See, in case anybody from Russia is listening, make una no vex. It's just an example, and I'm giving you people kudos and props. But you see, they too are a force to be reckoned with. The world may be, falling up and down, but none of us want to mess with that nation. None of us. I'm not going to go ahead to compare with other nations that were relaxed and all that, because I think that it's those nations, all of us would be, we all fall mostly in the category of the nations that were more liberal and all that. Now, please, as a note, I am not, advocating extremisms, but I am pointing out very deliberately that if we do not, with a certain measure of assertiveness and determination, control the education of our society, be it formal via academic or social via exposure, we would just be self-sabotaging. It is imperative that, we get to the point where we take the bull by the horns. It may not be popular and we could complain because change can be uncomfortable. However, especially when you know that something is for a season to achieve a certain goal, mumble and grumble all you want, you will pull through. We'll buckle down and get our nation to where it ought to be. So please, from our corners, from our homes, from our respective industries, and in this case, the strongest industry, second to obviously the educational industry, would be the media. If academic education is challenged, then what is the societal education that we are showing them? That's what is going to be the fate of this country, given the next couple of years or decades. I hope that you'll join us again in the comment section. Please drop your thoughts, drop your comments, share, subscribe, and let's see you at the next session and conversation. God bless you. Have a fantastic, fantastic week ahead. Ciao.